Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of No Way Jose, starring the Boston Mass, Jose Raymond. Special guest this week, client of his that you may recognize from many, many different places, CEO of a couple different companies, man about town, big figure in the industry, Marc Lobliner, just turned professional at the NPC Masters USA out in Arizona. So, guys, welcome to the show. Jose, it's your show, so I don't really have to welcome you, but let's get it started. First of all, guys, subscribe to the channel, like the video, thumbs up, and all that stuff. I want to know how you guys know each other. How far back do you guys go? First of all,
Jose, you want to take this?
Yeah, I'll start. We met in 2014 at the Arnold. We were just talking about this recently too. At the Arnold Classic in Australia, and he had his booth was right across from the iForce booth where I was.
Yeah.
And I had already heard of him. I'd watched the Tiger Fitness YouTube stuff, and Mark's a pretty well-known guy, so I knew who he was. And Ron, you know me, I'm like a no bullshit kind of guy, so I'm like, who is this fucking guy? Like he's got people all around him. He's talking. He's always on go, you know. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know how fun, you know. So we start talking, and he's just full of energy, and I'm like, no fucking way is this guy really, you know, he's full of shit. He's putting on a show, whatever. And I was a little agitated, but it was great to meet him. I'm like, this was cool. You know, fast forward a few years, we bump into each other here and there. Then, you know, as we go along, we have more in common. We really that notion that I had that Mark is full of shit slowly became like, this is really Mark. Yeah. I've never seen him not on. He's 100% or nothing, and I'm like, well, you know, some people are wired that way. I'm like, that's just how he is. And the more I got to know him, the more I got to respect it. And then the more I respected it, the more I loved the guy. I'm like, this guy is the real deal. And you know, he took me to his home. I met his kids, his family, and I got to really see the dynamic of you know, who he is and how hard he really works. And I was just blown away at that. And then he asked me, you know, eventually, you want to help me get ready for a show? And I'm like, hell yeah. I'm like, this guy, if he can work this hard in his businesses, with his family, and all the different things that he does, a bodybuilding show will be nothing. And as I predicted, it was literally easy. Every day, you know, it would be one text. His photos, I would say something like, all right, today, double your carbs. You're up to 350 today. He'd be like, done. That's it. The next day, new pictures. Done. That's it. And it was never a question. I'm like, he really is as hardworking as I thought, and then some. And then the results spoke for themselves.
Mark, I want to preface everything by you letting people know how much you have going on in your life, because a lot of people out there think, oh, I can't work, I can't have relationships. If I want to be a bodybuilder, I got to sit on the couch all day in between my meals and my workouts, can't do anything else. So tell me what you got going on for businesses and what you have going on for a family life.
So I like to keep busy. So we have multiple things. We have tigerfitness.com. We also have a 3PL, third-party fulfillment company, where we basically help other companies ship, and a lot of large businesses we actually procure for. We actually do that for Ambrosia, which is located in California. I usually go there every 2 to 3 weeks, which is cool because we own Iron Addicts Gym with CT Fletcher. Yeah. So I'm able to train there. So it's kind of like, yeah, I'm not at my gym, but I'm at friggin' Iron Addicts. Like, that's pretty cool, right? Yeah. And of course, MTS Nutrition, the Outright Bar, which requires me, you know, I'm on daily conference calls with anyone from GNC to Vitamin Shop to Walmart to Target to HEB to Hy-Vee. So that's a very encompassing company. We have 015 Nutrition with Brandon Curry. We have Pump Chasers as well. A couple other things going on, but those are the main things. I'm also a full-time strength coach at Ravenwood High School, where I handle the strength program for the wrestlers. So, you know, I usually spend around 20 to 30 hours coaching my kids. I try to go to as many meets as possible, as well as my kids who play travel soccer and everything else. So my travel is less business now and more personal, getting my kids to these meets. So but I make time to train every day. I'm fortunate enough where I can take time and go places and travel to places. And again, like, I'm just fortunate and blessed to be able to do what I love. And I love doing a lot of things. So I'm like, why not do all of them?
Yeah. I mean, Jose, obviously, this guy's got a work ethic like very few human beings do. But at the same time, were you concerned that this guy's got so much going on? How am I gonna know he's gonna be able to eat all his meals on time, do all his cardio, do all that? Or was that never even a concern? He's gonna squeeze it in somehow.
No, I knew for a fact he would get it done because one, I've seen him throughout his career. He does always look good. He never, he's not Ronnie Coleman, but he never looks out of shape, and he's never as small as people think. He's Mark's a big guy, and I just knew it, and I had no question. If anything, in one of the first discussions we had regarding this prep was, dude, you need to slow down. Like you gotta just chill out a little bit, because he'd be like, I gotta go to wrestling, then I gotta go to soccer, and then I did 45 minutes of cardio, then I sat in the sauna. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, just relax. I'm like, take a breath. And that's not Mark. He doesn't breathe. And he'll sleep 5 hours at night. Sleep is like a rock, and then get up and be 100 miles an hour again. And I noticed something with people like that. They have that in common. And Rob Bailey's another one that when I stayed at their place, we were up till 1 a.m. talking and having a blast. And then at like 5:30 in the morning, I'm hearing noises, boom, boom, boom. And I go out and Rob's got a mask on. He's already been spray painting shit everywhere. And I'm like, he doesn't sleep. People like that are uber successful, they don't have time for sleep. Their mind just starts going and tells them, get up, you got to do this. I got shit to do. And I've noticed that. But Mark is the exact same way. Like, as soon as he's up before I was, and me and Nate went down there, and he was up before both me and Nate, and he'd already had a bunch of things going. Probably already spent an hour on emails. He'd already cooked. He'd already done push-ups. He'd already, cleaning certain shit, and it was just nuts. And I have a huge respect for that. So no, I didn't doubt for a second that he could get it done.
Yeah, I mean, condition-wise, I don't think you were ever worried because, like I said, every time I think Mark's throwing up a throwback picture, like from a week out from a show, it's not. It's today. He's always pretty close. And Mark, I'm surprised because you threw up some pictures a couple weeks ago of you as a teenager, and you were heavy. You were can I say fat? Is that a word now that we can say?
I was fat as hell, man.
You were a fat kid, so I would never expect somebody like that to be able to stay as lean as you do year round. Did your metabolism speed up eventually, or do you just get really skilled at the diet and the cardio regimen to be able to figure out how to stay? I don't know what you are, like in 9%, 8%. I don't think you ever get higher than that.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I was chunky, so to speak, or out of shape, not at least seeing some abs. When I was a kid, I knew I had to work hard to get out of my situation. My only way to get out of the situation was football. And I was undersized, so I literally had to eat to the point of discomfort to gain weight. So it wasn't like I was eating salads. Like, I worked hard to get fat because I was fortunate that I was really fast. Like, at 280 pounds, I got clocked at 4.68 in the 40-yard dash.
280.
I was really fortunate. 280. So I got up to 295 at my heaviest.
Mark,
but that was on purpose.
You're like 5'7", aren't you? 5'8"?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's a big boy.
5'7".
Okay. Good God.
Yeah,
okay.
But it was weird because I look back at like high school film, and I'm about to get it digitized in a minute here. And it's funny because you see this little ball like flying down the field. And I'm like, so I was going to go to college and, drop down like 240 and play fullback, but my knee gave out. But nonetheless, I needed to get out of my situation. I didn't grow up with a silver spoon, and I wasn't smart enough to be a valedictorian. I had a 3.3. I needed to go to college to get out of my situation. And that's what I did. And I was focused. So I trained 6 to 8 hours a day after school. I trained conditioning with the basketball team. I'd lift weights for like 5 hours. So it was my only way out. And I knew academics weren't the way out. So I didn't pay any attention to homework or anything. I just needed to get good at football. And for me, that was an unskilled position because I have no skills, and just run into people and basically hit people and hope that someone offers me a scholarship. And so I ate, man. I used to eat. I couldn't quantify the calories. I mean, we had In-N-Out Burger back in California, and McDonald's had like Big Macs for $1. If I can get a refund, like $1 for every Big Mac I ate in high school, I'd be worth a ton of money. And that was all my money because I wasn't rich. Like, I'd spend all my money on food, and it got me to where I needed to go. But my metabolism, as I got older, it did get better. As I was in my 20s, I remember I dieted down for a photo shoot in Men's Fitness at 21 years old. And I can't remember ever getting quote unquote fat after that. After that diet, my body basically set a new set point because I held it. They kept pushing back the photo shoot. You know how this goes for MD. They kept pushing back the photo shoot. Oh, can't do it this month because I was a nobody, right? Like, they had really good looking dudes. I'm a 21-year-old nobody. They finally gave me my shot, and I got in great shape for it, like really good shape. And I didn't mess up, and I reverse dieted, and I kept in shape, and my body basically said, all right, I'm good here. So now, what's funny is I don't think, Jose, we didn't really count calories per se till like 7 weeks out. Jose was like, eat as much clean food as possible and we'll see what happens. So every day I'd be like, okay, here's about what I ate. I'd be eating as much rice and chicken and potatoes as possible. And I'd send him my pictures, and he'd be like, well, holy shit, let's try to eat some more. And then he'd be like, yeah, maybe cut back a little bit. But it was basically going by intuition and eye. And then Jose really brought me in 7 weeks. And you saw it, man. I'm not trying to be, I'm really proud of this because I didn't think at 41 years old, 8 years off the stage, I did not think I could get that. And Jose's I'm sorry, I'm not going to curse YouTube. He's a friggin' genius. He brought me in, a 41-year-old has-been, not even never was. I was a pro in a second-rate organization, let's be honest. But he brought me in, and it was some of the best conditioning, my quads and everything, that I've seen on an NPC stage.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of that. And that's me being, I'm proud. Hell yeah. Give me a damn ego on that. I show those pictures. I'm like, I look friggin' great. There's no dysmorphia here, guys.
Yeah. So Jose, what was the biggest challenge? I mean, with somebody who stays that lean, is it hard to keep them from, peaking too soon, from flattening out, from over dieting? What were the biggest challenges you had with Marc's prep, especially in those last 7 weeks?
Well, looking back, it wasn't much of a challenge because it was just keeping him full, keeping him eating, and getting away from the mindset of what everyone does. Well, it's, we're 3 weeks out. We're going to really start sucking down now.
Yeah.
And I knew that that's the difference. You need to know what you're looking at. And I knew that he was lean enough. Like, he was basically contest lean. And all we needed to do was keep him full and then pull a little water. And so I knew that he was going to be in shape.
Yeah.
But he was also very sneaky. Like, I sounded gay. I'm like, Marc, I need pictures in your trunks, rear poses in your trunks. And, he'd send me pictures of great shots with just shorts on, rolled up. And I'm like, no, you got to put trunks on. And he's like, all right. And then when he did, I'm like, all right, we're close. So then, it was simple as every day. He'd send me a picture and I'd be like, all right, today we're going to stay high. We were as high as 400 grams, 350 to 400, to as low as 120. And just depending on the day, it was all visual. We never once counted and said, you're on this many calories. It was just a visual thing. And that's the best way to do it. The minute you get into counting calories and trying to be too scientific is when you screw up. You have to do it visually. It's a visual sport. And I know that if what I'm doing, I really like the look, that the judges are going to too. Yeah. And if I don't like the look, then we got to change it. But it was very, very simple. I had no question that he would be able to perform the tasks. It was very easy. And then once we were there, I showed up on Wednesday, Marc?
Thursday morning.
Thursday morning. And the amount that he changed from Thursday morning to Friday morning is like crazy. To Saturday morning. When was prejudging? Saturday morning?
Saturday morning. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when the quads did that weird thing where I had like striations on my inner thighs, which I didn't think I could do. Like Jose brought some shit out and stuff out in me that I didn't think was possible.
Yeah, you
I never
his
thought
adductors, his sartorius, that's very rare when you can see, I mean, tie-ins up in his groin area of his hamstring separation to the quad, to the adductors. That's how peeled he was. Some photos you couldn't see it just from straight on, but there was one where he's hitting a front double, and it was pretty wild, like an anatomy chart. And one of the judges even said it to him, like, dude, I've never seen someone's legs look like that on stage. And that's how peeled he was.
And
that's my weak point. Imagine what happens when we get him bigger for the for the Chicago Pro, bro. I'm excited.
Oh, we'll talk about Chicago Pro. Don't worry. But this was your first prep together, guys, right?
Yeah.
So it's usually a learning process. It's usually very, very difficult to nail it the first time when a coach and a client work together. Were there things along the way that you guys had to figure out about? You, Mark, you had to figure out how Jose works in certain aspects of what he's telling you, and Jose, you had to. Did you guys butt heads at all? Were there just things that you had to clarify?
I'll take the first part of this.
Yeah.
When you hire a coach, and this is for every competitor out there, because I get this all the time. Hey man, my coach told me to do this. What do you think? Shut up. If you hire a coach, unless it's something that you know is dangerous, and Jose and I talked about this, like you see someone like, all right, take 2 grams of Lasix. I don't even know what the dosing is on that stuff. Okay. Or maybe like take some absurd insulin or something absurd, right? Yeah. Then you're like, okay, maybe this guy's nuts, right? But when you hire a coach, that's who you listen to. If he tells you to go out back, pick up a piece of dog poop and eat it, you eat it. Hopefully he never does that. But my thing is, you're not getting, look, if you have someone guiding you in a show and you don't follow 100% of what they do, they can't make the adjustments and you're going to fail. You're going to do really bad. And you see that all the time on stage. You see these conflicts, you cover it, Ron, where they fire their coach. Then the coach is like, dude, I told him to eat 300 grams of carbs. He ate 400. Or I told him that, and he's like, dude, if you don't listen to the guy, how do you know what he's going to do? But here's the thing. Like, I was a big Jose fan. Like, his physique was something like everybody. I remember everybody's talking about Ronnie and Jay, and they're amazing. But I looked at someone who brought just like, you could tell like the branch in his heyday and his best, Look, you can't, like, God gives you structure, right? Like, but God doesn't give you graininess and veins, and it just shows you that hard work and that preparation. And I'm like, dude, if I can even get like 20% of what he had on stage and combine it with my structure and what God did give me good, and hopefully, hide in good posing what God gave me really bad, then, hey, we have a good chance of doing something special. And God, I mean, I can't say enough about Jose's ability to bring out the best in people. And I know I'm not the only one. Look at Nate. Yeah. Like, Nate looks amazing. And those are the only two, like, there's your case studies. There's your before and afters. Like, this is a guy who could bring in people and bring out the best in even, a 41-year-old nobody like me.
Yeah, stop saying nobody. But one thing I was curious about was the training aspect. Jose, did you have anything to do with how he trained? Because I saw so many clips of Mark going crazy, crazy heavy. And, there's 2 schools of thought on that. You need to keep the weights very, very heavy until the end so the muscle stays dense and full. Other people say you need to back off or else, you're at a high risk for injury. I'm sure you were watching him train, and you probably trained with him a couple of times at some point during the prep. So what are your thoughts on that?
So Mark and I have trained together many times, and he's freaky strong. And so I didn't want to touch his training. He's smart enough he's not going to go for records at 3 weeks out, but it's important to keep the weight heavy. If you can bench 150s for 10 reps, then that's not world record breaking weight for you, so continue to do so. Now, I wouldn't tell him to try to do 180 for 3. That's stupid. And Mark knows better. So it was very little. And that's the beautiful thing, is that Mark's been around the block a long time. I didn't have to waste time. Like, what? You were doing what? No, we didn't have to do that. Mark knows how to train. And I didn't waste time on that. And as far as the prep things, yes, I've watched Mark prep for other shows, and we kept in contact the whole time, and he'd send me pictures. I'd be like, you look awesome, buddy. And I knew there were things that I would say, but that's not my job if I'm not helping him. So I wouldn't say anything. If he asked me, I would give him my opinion. But I knew all along, like when he was getting ready for North Americans, I knew that there would be things that I would do, and Nate and I would discuss it. And Nate was a big advocate to Mark. Like, dude, just let him take over, and it's a lot easier on your mind, where you know there's less stress. Don't worry about anything. Just someone to check in with every day, and let him take control. And that's precisely what we did. But I knew there would be some things that I would change. But in bodybuilding, Ron, it's the littlest changes that make the biggest difference.
Right.
And I'm not one to be a science guy and try to complicate things. It's very simple little things. And when I was out there with him, we worked on posing for hours. And that's a lot of things that other people don't do. It's a presentation sport. It only makes sense that you work on your presentation. So we literally, hours a day from Thursday, Friday, even Saturday after prejudging, between prejudging and finals. And he was able to change his overall look and structure just from posing. And someone said it to me just yesterday. Was, I really think you had something to do with bringing in Mark's waist. His waist was so small. And I'm like, well, no, I didn't, shave off his hips. I mean, because ultimately that's what it was all about, posing and getting his posture right. So now when he hit, instead of him just being tight like this, he was able to open up, and his waist looked so tiny, and he's super wide. Yeah. If you've ever seen Mark in person, his lats, he has abnormal lat and pec thickness for a guy his size.
Yeah, and the structure.
Someone 5'7", so his hips look even smaller. And then, once he realized, all right, I have to pull through my diaphragm, and everything I do has to be up here into my chest, it made every pose look incredible. So his side chest went from being good to being spectacular. And this is something else we'll touch on. He had the best midsection in the entire show. Wow. Of any class in any age. And Mark can tell you a little bit about it, but similar to Phil Heath, he had his stomach reconstructed. And somehow Mark got lucky, and with hard work came back and not only returned from this crazy surgery, but returned with the best midsection in the entire show. Wow. Tell them what happened and all the different screws and shit you got in your stomach.
Yeah, I basically you have a diastasis. It happens a lot to pregnant women. And it was back in the day, and this is before I even touched GH. Like, I'm Jewish. That stuff's expensive. I ain't paying for it. So like people be like GH cut. And then like I remember Piana did a video on, and everybody thought it was about me, and Rich was like, no, I don't fucking care about you, so I did this, he did this video on like GH gut and what happens, and I'm like, I don't think he's talking about me. And I asked Rich, we were at a trade show, he's like, no, I wasn't talking about you. And I'm like, oh, okay. So basically I had diastasis, which my abdominal muscles tore. Basically they pulled apart from each other, which caused tears in essentially the fascia, which caused hernias to come through. So I went to just a general surgeon. His name is Dr. White in St. Charles, Illinois. I mean, he's not like all these bodybuilders, he's world-renowned bodybuilding surgeon, and they always seem to do a really bad job. I'm like, okay. So I just went to some guy that he actually did my vasectomy. Believe it or not. So this guy has been inside my stomach and my scrotum. And so he went in, and he didn't know how bad it was, but he was able to go in laparoscopically, which is through 8 holes. So I do not have a big scar. Like I believe Phil has a scar around his navel now. I have one tiny scar from where I actually tore the muscle after the surgery, which was just a freak accident. I don't even know how it happened. And I have no scars. And they go in and they basically blow air between your muscle and your fascia. All right. And your organ, sorry, your muscle and your organs. Yeah. So between my organs and my muscle, they put in this Gore-Tex, which is a piece of mesh. And then they used 40 titanium screws to basically tack it in there, pulled my abs back together so I didn't have a big gap, a Ronnie Coleman gap in between. And there I was. 8 weeks later, I was able to, kind of come back. And basically I practiced a lot of breathing. I had a good friend of mine, Dr. Stu, who taught me how to breathe and really work that transverse abdominis. And because of that, now I have a vacuum and I'm able to do things. But it was a hell of a surgery, and I'm very blessed to be able to have a surgeon who went in, and I believe it was his first time ever doing this surgery.
Oh, wow.
Like, this guy works on testicles, bro. Like, he's a general surgeon. Like, he's a vasectomy guy, but he did a phenomenal job. And here I am. But it was a hell of a thing to overcome. And it took about, this is why, and I want for the record, Phil's one of my best friends. I love Phil Heath to death. I would take a bullet for him. That's not even a joke. I think Phil needs to come back, because I think he came back too soon after that surgery. It took me a good 2 years for the swelling to subside. Wow. It was a major surgery. You're putting mesh, a foreign object, and screws into your, like, between your organs and your muscle. That's disgusting. And your body needs to adapt to that. Your body needs to adjust. I think if Phil Heath gave it a serious year of training, I think he'd bring his best physique ever. I really do, because what you saw in his stomach, you saw some distension. It's not because of anything he did. Come on, dude. He's like 40. He's 41. He's my age. He's old enough to know what to do not to have distension. And Hani's a phenomenal coach. So, I do believe that it was surgery, and I would love to see Phil make a comeback, because I think that swelling has gone down. And if you look at his current pictures, he looks amazing. He's slimmed down, and I think his stomach has had time to heal. And I know this is totally off tangent, but similar surgery. But yeah, it was and that's one of the, I did that after I retired from bodybuilding. So I just didn't care, because I went into boxing for 5 years, and believe it or not, having a Gore-Tex mesh with scar tissue under you can punch me in my stomach all you want. It doesn't hurt. So it was actually an unfair competitive advantage.
Yeah. You did the boxing in between. You did a match in between North American and your prep for this show, didn't you? Didn't you do that big boxing match back in the spring?
No, well, that was May. So I did North Americans, and then I think it was 6 weeks later or 8 weeks later, we did Masters USA. But Jose and I initially were going for, I believe it was nationals in 2022. But I gained so much lean mass that I'm like, Jose, I think we could do this. He's like, yep, you can. But yeah, my last fight was in May. And my wife, I was getting ready for, the reason I started bodybuilding, I was getting ready for a tournament in Atlanta, a Masters boxing tournament. And I kept getting my ass kicked in sparring. And I was coming home with concussions, I'm sure. And my wife's like, one night, she's like, you got to stop boxing. And I'm like, well, what do I do? She's like, I don't know. I'm like, can I bodybuild again? She's like, we'll talk about it. And then my buddy Bino, who puts on the Knox Classic, it was like 10 days out, something like that. He's like, hey, you should do my show. I'm like, let me ask my wife. And she's like, okay. I'm like, whoa. So I literally, took 10 days prep for that show. And I started bodybuilding training again, because I was training, unless I was doing a training video, my training was like 2-3 days a week and just the basic lifts. I didn't train for bodybuilding for over 5 years.
Wow. Yeah. Jose, I want to back up to something you talked about. You had been a friend of Mark's, so you'd watch him in other preps. And as a coach, you're seeing things that you would like to do differently with him. Without going into crazy detail, what are some of the things that you were seeing him do in a previous prep that you knew you would change if you ever got the chance to prep him yourself?
One were the poses. Like a lot of the poses, as we touched on earlier, we spend hours on getting him comfortable with certain things. And Mark's a very tight dude, so he's not very fluid. And when he hits a side chest, he crunches down a little bit. He's like real tight instead of opening up and making him like, you hit a good side chest. You know how to lift your rib cage and have everything in the right position. Where he was just kind of tight because he has such good abs. He would feature his abs in the side chest. But in doing so, he would be tight like that, right? Make himself small. Right. Same thing with the front double. He was really tight. Side tricep, same thing. He was really tight. And he was making himself look narrow. So every time he'd send me pictures, I'd be like, he's hard, but he's making himself look small. So that was simple things. And I knew that everyone gets caught up in this, like, oh, we got to go low carbs. It's pre-contest. I got to get, and I knew that with Marc, in order to hold the look that I would envision for him, he's not like everyone else. You know, like I say, he'd get up and do 45 minutes of cardio, then he would go train, then he'd go to soccer practice, then he would go do, you know, sit in a board meeting, then he would go back and do wrestling practice for 2 hours, then he'd go back and sit in the sauna. And I'm like, it's just too much. You got to eat. You got to eat to carry that much activity. So he'd be like, really? You think 300? And I'm like, yep. All right. And the next day he looked just as hard, if not harder, but fuller. And I'd be like, yeah, 350 today. 350. He's like, all right. And the next day he'd be, you know, ripping through the seams. And he's like, holy shit, I can't believe this. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, you needed fuel to carry this lifestyle. And it's not like I was worried he was doing too much, that he would shrink. It's just, I was worried he wasn't eating enough to be able to do it. You know, I wasn't going to say you can't coach your son's wrestling team anymore, or you can't go to this meeting with Kroger's. You got to fuel it. That's it. I threw that in there on purpose, Marc, in case you wanted to touch on it. Marc's got a very good story. I love a lot about Marc, and one of them is his beliefs. We don't want to get too political or anything, but he's an activist in many ways. And this one particular way, I happen to really, really admire.
Which is? I mean, it's not really politics. It's freedom. You know, I like freedom of choosing things that you want to do. And Kroger has this thing. I won't say the word, the medical procedure mandates, because YouTube doesn't like that word. And, you know, I basically, you know, we were in the final stretch of our deal, which was a very lucrative 7+ figure deal. Kroger's huge. And I basically said, we're not going to do business with you until you reconsider this. And it's been awesome since I've been on I've been on Jesse Kelly's show. I've been on Timcast. I'm on Newsmax later this week. So, I mean, it's generating some good buzz for the outright bar, but it's a huge risk. It was a huge deal that I made in 30 minutes. So I literally saw the press. I saw the news article, and I waited for my wife to wake up, because of course it was like 5 a.m. So 2 hours later, I'm like, Katie, I need your opinion. She's like, do it. And my wife is the sensible one. I'm like a, you know, bull in a china shop. I just run through things. I'm a wrecking ball, but she's very, very meticulous and very smart. And I'm the opposite. So it really worked. I'm meticulous in certain areas, business and stuff. But like when I believe in something, I'm like, let's go. And sometimes it's the worst decision. So, you know, it was just something that I felt was my part of doing for what I believe in, and setting an example for your kids of not selling out and relying on ethics before anything. So that's me. And if you disagree with me, that's cool. It's a free country. We could all disagree, but that's the stand that I'm making.
Cool. I have, just because you're so busy, and I'm OCD about eating, as I'm sure most people who compete are, even though it's been 1,000 years. Were there a lot of points where you needed to be eating, where you're in the middle of a meeting or you're in the middle of a practice, and you can't, I imagine you're sitting at a table, or I don't know if it's all Zoom nowadays, you can't just start stuffing your face with the chicken and the rice. You know, how did you manage that, being so busy, and especially dealing with these high level people?
Well, it was macro based. So if let's say I had a meeting that ran over by an hour, I just put my next 2 meals closer together, and it would be uncomfortable sometimes, because, you know, my stomach, I don't know if you guys have this, but your appetite is through the roof, but your actual ability to put food in your stomach is very low. Like, I don't understand, like, you know, my friend, he's Dreamweaver on IG, but Bartley, he goes and he does eating challenges after a show. Yep. And I'm like, dude, I ate that burger and a cookie after the show, and I'm like, I'm done. I'm tapped out. You know, I can't eat anymore. And it was very unimpressive. And for the next week, and even during prep, like, you're like, oh my God, I crave this. And then you eat like 100 grams of rice, and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm so full, because your stomach is like tiny at that point. You know, it's like there's nowhere to put it. So, you know, I really had, you know, for me, it was the opposite of most people's preps, where mine was like, I have to get in food, rather than I'm hungry and I'm dying. So I actually felt really good throughout prep. The last 3 days were tough. I hit one stick point. It was the Saturday before the show, And I think we pulled carbs back, and it was just a day where I just felt weird, and I knew I felt weird. So I mentally, prepared myself for it, and I got through the day and I crushed it. It was a phenomenal day. And then the next day I was fine. So I really, out of weeks of prep, I had one day where I felt off. I mean, Jose had me feeling amazing the whole time. I mean, even and the post contest, like blues and everything, man, I mean, I don't know if I had them or not, but after you get a pro card, if you're depressed, there's something wrong with you. Because that thing, I mean, dude, I was walking through the airport and the pro card's like this freaking big, right? Yeah. You're like, and people have no idea what it is. It's like, oh, congratulations. I'm like, yes. It's like walking through a MILF mall, the mall middle of the day where all the MILFs hang out with a puppy. It was amazing. Man. Like Irvine Spectrum, those of y'all in California you go to the Irvine Spectrum at like noon, all the MILFs are there. It's like MILF Central.
Did not know that. So
yeah, I'm just giving Jose some information for that.
Jose, I want to know,
you're in Cali.
Did you have anything to do, Jose, with picking the show? Because, if a pro card was the goal, and it was, that was a tough show, because I believe you had to win not only your weight class for over 40, but the overall, whereas there were other shows prior to that, North American, Universe, where there were more pro cards available, where you didn't have to win the whole overall like that. What made you guys, were you part of the process, Jose, or what made you pick that particular show?
Well, no, I wanted to see him win, period. It didn't matter if he had to win the overall or his class. I knew that he was capable of winning, but initially he had said nationals, and I was like, all right, whatever you want. I knew that would be a tough show to win. Yeah. And I'm not saying he wouldn't have done well. He would have done very well. But winning at nationals, then he just popped up in because he was looking ready, really ready. And he's like, you know what? This show, what was it, about 7 or 8 weeks out? And he's like, this show's on this date. What do you think of this? And then I remembered, I'm like, shit, Nate won that show last year. Yeah. And it was a really good show. He had missed by 1 point getting the pro card there. He won the heavyweights and lost the overall. But I remember being like, they didn't care how big you were, because Nate was the smallest guy in the class. I think he weighed like 203. And he smoked the class. I'm like, the judging was really good. I remembered they gave it to Nate because he was peeled and well put together. And I'm like, you know what? This is a great idea, because I know there's going to be bigger guys than you. And as long as you show up in shape, you're going to win. And surely the judges were ecstatic at his condition. Promoters, judges, when you show that you put that type of effort into coming to do their show, they have the ultimate in respect for that. And it goes a long way. So not only did Marc have great structure, but he had the best conditioning in the show. And, you put those two together, and he had what is it, the word I'm looking for? Addictive, contagious energy on stage. He was screaming at the top of his lungs. He was clapping and dancing, and when he was awarded the pro card, it was like in a comedy where he screamed so loud the entire audience went quiet. You could hear crickets, and then the MC was like, well, now that was embarrassing. It was the funniest moment I've ever seen on the stage.
Wow.
And then Tariq comes out and he hugs him, and the hug was like too long. And that was it was the most awkward, hilarious, awesome moment that I've ever got to see. It was just awesome.
Yeah.
So
awkward and embarrassing is pretty much my life.
We're good at it.
Summed up in 2 words.
Yeah.
I have no shame. It was the proudest moment of my life outside of what my kids do. Like, I live vicariously to my kids. And for me, the best moment was coming back the next Tuesday and coaching my kids at Ravenwood. And I'm going to try not to cry. And they were so proud. And I showed them that, you know what, if you put your mind to something, you can probably accomplish it. And we've seen just from me doing that, like we've had a fantastic year of people winning who shouldn't have won, because wrestling, and you wrestled, Jose, it's like 90% mind. And these kids know that if they will it, they can make it happen. And I mean, I got to be real, like me wanting to compete is because my kids compete so hard. Like my daughter just dropped 4 pounds over Christmas to make a new weight class for wrestling. And she's very lean to begin with. And I'm watching her do this. And I know part of the reason she has that drive and wants to win is because I exude that. And for me, it's about setting an example. But I'll tell you what, man, that everything you saw on that stage, I had one comment, the YouTube comments was like, oh, I have no respect for you after putting on that show. I'm like, that wasn't a show. That was legit my emotions coming through. Trust me, if I had a show, it would be much different than that. That was just my reaction to the situation, which was absolutely I can't even explain how amazing it was.
Well, let me ask you this, Mark, because, some people, I've known a lot of guys who turn pro very young. They've only done a couple shows. They don't even know much about the industry or anything. They're just babies. You've been around the industry a long time. So many, you've trained with all the top pros, Mr. Olympia's name, you name it, and you do have a great structure and you get very lean, but you're not a genetic god like some of these people where I've seen kids go from never touching weight to turning pro in like 3 or 4 years in some cases. Did you feel a deeper appreciation, a gratitude of getting that pro card than maybe you would have if it happened 20 years ago and you just sort of been screwing around with weights for a couple of years?
If I was in my 30s, I would not have appreciated it like I do now, because there's so much that goes into it. And I have respect for every pro. If you're a pro in badminton or anything, like you're elite. Like to have pro beside your name in any sport, any activity, you are an elite athlete. You are an elite in your chosen sport, and you respect it more. And to watch all the work that goes into this, and to know all the work, and that you can't just like they always say, you don't play boxing. I don't think you play any sport. If you're in it to win it, like you are sacrificing and you are working. And there's something to be said, like you watch these guys and what they go through, and you look at Cutler's old videos of him eating 10,000 grams of carbs a day or whatever. And it seems weird. And we are in a very, polarized sport where we do get a lot of bad press, but I'd like to say that bodybuilding, look at what we did in pumping iron. It brought health and fitness to the mainstream. And that's where I want to go with this. It is about winning shows, but it's also about how can we use bodybuilding to make the world a healthier, better place. And that's where I look at it. So I look at this pro card as a blessing, as something that can allow me, because look, I'll tell you what, a lot of these interviews I'm getting, like Timcast, all this, having IFBB Pro behind my name, it helps. It's like putting we talked about this on my Instagram post, Ron. It's like having a doctor, a PhD in front of your name or in back of your name. It just adds credibility, because Marc Lobliner, bodybuilder, it's like, okay, everybody who lifts a weight can claim they're a bodybuilder. Marc Lobliner, IFBB Pro, it gives me more credibility as a fitness guy, not within the fitness industry, but dude, I've been on, since this pro card, I've been on news channels and podcasts with tens of millions of viewers. Like, we're not talking about niche stuff, like industry stuff, where we get tens of thousands. We're talking tens of millions. So my goal is to bring more people into this industry, because this industry is amazing. It is so good. It's just, we always look at the bad stuff because that's what gets clicks, right? Like that's what gets the views. But what if we use this industry for good? And that's what I look at it as.
So you got the pro card, and then, immediately, I think you started talking about Chicago Pro. Was that a joint decision? Chicago, why that particular show? Is there a timeline involved? Does that show mean something to you? Why Chicago Pro, guys?
I immediately brought it up because he's from there.
Oh, there you go.
He's lived there, and you have family there, Mark?
Yeah, I got good friends, family, and honestly, the timeline works out perfectly, allows me to put on some size, still stay within the 212, which I think is probably best for me. I mean, you're the judge of that, but it allows me to, go somewhere I'm familiar with. And honestly, like I think it's disrespectful. And that's the reason people are like, oh, Masters pro cards don't count. Part of the reason is these guys get their pro card and they retire.
Right.
No, that's bullshit. You know what? I'm not a pro till I actually show that I can bang on a pro stage. And like Jose said, like I'm bringing a pro quality physique to Masters USA. I just don't want to be the best old guy. I want to be the best guy who can actually go compete on a pro level stage. And dude, there's no like none of this like, man, if I place top 5, no, I'm going for first place. And whether that's possible or not, it's not possible if you don't think it's possible. So I'm training every day. I just put on my Instagram story today, like, this is for Chicago Pro. I am going to win first place. Whether I will that into existence or not, whether it's possible or not, I don't know. But I don't play to lose. And anybody who plays to lose, that's not a good way to live life. How am I going to go to the gym? If I'm thinking I'm just going for top 5 or top 10, I'm going to train like I'm going for top 5. If I'm going like I'm going to win the damn show, I'm going to train like I'm going to win the damn show.
True. So Jose, what was your reaction when he said that? Because you don't bullshit people at all. You're straight up, and sometimes people don't like that. But he comes to you and says, I want to do the Chicago Pro 212 and I want to win. What was your initial reaction?
Well, as you said, I'm not a bullshitter. I laugh a lot. I love his enthusiasm. He's like, no, we're not going to do it. We're going to win. I'm like, I agree. I'm like, you don't. Second place doesn't get me out of bed in the morning. And so what I did do is I sent him immediately a picture of Nathan Epler, and I said, phenomenal. This is our goal. This is, and not only is it a goal, it is realistic. Nate doesn't have huge arms. He's not a thick, stocky 212 guy. He's a tall, slender 212 guy who brings the heat, who brings condition, who relies on his strengths of a good back and great pecs and a tight waist and great conditioning. It doesn't matter who's the biggest. It matters who brings the most of all those qualities combined. And Nate's such an awesome example of that he's able to win the Indy Pro and beat a lot of good guys. And I think Marc is capable of the same. They have a lot of similar qualities. If Marc can bring up his legs just a little bit, he'd be very similar to Nathan Epler. That's saying a lot because Nathan Epler ended up placing top 5 in the Olympia.
Right.
No.
This guy is the real deal, and it's a realistic goal. It's not like I said, hey, I want you to look like Kenneth Baggio, who's 5'3", 212. That's not realistic. I think someone to strive for is he's one of the tallest 212s who just brings the heat and worries nothing about anyone else, worries about himself, brings the best package he can, and has had great success. I think that's realistic. I think that's the route that we need to go, which is just like we did in Phoenix, which is just bring the heat, bring the best you can, and let the judges sort it out. And with a great presentation, which, by the way, Nathan is a great poser.
Yeah.
And that all those things combined are what brought him his success. And I think Marc can do the same for sure.
Is the show in Illinois for 2022? Do we know?
I think
for
so.
now.
Oh,
for
good.
now, I mean, you don't know day to day what this administration's doing. So, and by administration, I mean even localities. Like, for example, Tennessee, dude, you were here during the height of the pandemic, and the gym was literally like a sardine can. Like, we were touching, and there were no masks. It was crazy. And I remember posting that on Instagram. People were like, what the hell is that? So it just depends. Now it's in Rosemont, which is literally next to Chicago. So it's not in the city of Chicago.
Right. So
theoretically, it should be all good. No restrictions, no nothing. And if not, it's going to be the Chicago Pro in Georgia. So,
well,
which is fine. I mean, and Georgia's even closer to me, so I could actually drive to Georgia.
Right on. Now, I went to the Chicago Pro when it was in Illinois, and it was nowhere near Chicago. It was like
it's Rosemont, yeah.
It was like
30 minutes out.
Tinley Park, was that where it was before? It was somewhere. That
yeah,
was
it's
like,
about 30. It's the road. I think it used to be at the Rosemont Convention Center, which is about 30 minutes out. I used to train at a gym called Ironclad, which is about 10 minutes from there. So it's a great venue and
it's a great area.
Promoters.
Everything's walking distance. You can walk to a bunch of nice restaurants.
Perfect.
It's only like 10 minutes from the airport too, right?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, it's gorgeous, man. I mean, I lived in Illinois before I moved to Tennessee, and I was born in Chicago. A lot of people don't know that. So for me, and also like this week, like December 12th, like I like dates, like significance. Like when I went on Timcast, which was my biggest appearance ever, it was December 27th. That's when my dad passed away. So if I can, I like to kind of link things up with something that drives me a little further. And going back to my hometown where I was born and doing my first pro show, it's kind of like being reborn for me. And I know that's weird, but I'm a kind of weird guy.
Mark, did you ever have coaches before, or was Jose your first coach?
I've worked with people. I've had people kind of help me. But I normally do mostly my own prep, and I just have one guy where I'll soundboard off of, and I can't coach myself. And it's just, I can't, because it's really hard for anybody. Like, Jose worked with Aceto, you can't look at yourself and be objective, because I'm always going to see that fat kid from high school. And I'm going to totally screw it up. I would have got on stage flat or fat or something. And Jose brought everything I needed. Like I said, it was perfect. Like there's nothing we could change. I couldn't have brought a better package. Like, how many times do you say I peaked? I literally peaked, and I didn't feel like shit before or after. In my opinion, we just hit the lottery. That is a unicorn prep.
Yeah. I mean, the condition was just flawless. I go to obviously a lot of pro shows, and it was much better condition than I see on a lot of the guys on the pro stage. So, props to both of you guys. You did a tremendous job there.
I just listened.
Jose, you're so humble in this aspect. I think you are one of the best coaches out there, but I don't think many people are aware of that, because you do not toot your own horn. You don't make posts saying, here's how many pro cards I got. Look at my client, look at me, look at this and that. For someone that is a good part of your income, why do you stay so low key about it? Why don't you, blow your own horn a little bit more?
Because I think the proof is in the pudding, and my work speaks for itself. I don't have to, and I get really embarrassed for people and agitated when I see other people doing it. So I would never do that. Like when a coach posts a picture of a client that just won, they're not posting about them. They're posting about themselves. This recent nationals, when Carlos Thomas won, and then his coach started posting, oh, look at what I did. And, he don't know him for a couple of weeks, he helped him get ready. And I don't know the details about that. So, but that is the rumor going on, and that's the way it looked. And I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be, if that person wants to promote themselves and post about it, then that's awesome. But I'm certainly not going to do it and look foolish. It's one thing to promote, and it's one thing to make yourself look like an idiot. I just don't like that. Secondly, I, as Mark will tell you, I'm very invested in whoever I'm working with. So I cannot accept, 100 emails a day and just take on hundreds of clients like some people do. I don't have the organizational skills to do that. So I would rather have the few that reach out and that are serious, and be able to put my time into them. I'm just not that guy that's going to have hundreds of clients. I can't do that, because it's not fair to them. And it's funny. Let me quickly hit on this, and we talked about it yesterday. I got a DM from a guy. He said, "Oh, I need your help. I want to do this. I want to, And I'm like, okay. And you can tell right away when someone says, well, I only need this. And I'm like, well, that's not really up to you. That's not how I work. And all right, so how much? I tell him. Yeah. And he comes back with this diatribe of like, I can't believe I looked up to you for years. You're just another one of those scumbags taking advantage of your fans. And you must train all doctors and lawyers, celebrities. And I'm like, dude, I don't know where this is coming from. I'm sure there's someone out there for you, but I'm not the one. I'm like, this is what it is. I don't, I can't believe you're DMing me like this. I go, I was hesitant to respond to you, but I did. And this is what I get. So fast forward a few hours later, I meet another guy, train him for the first time and discuss prep. He said, all right, I'm in. I want to do it. How much? I tell him. He said, oh, dude, you need to up your prices. Right away. Wow. That was his first thing to me. You really need to up your prices. And I'm like, how ironic is that? That I just got chewed out by some dude, and yet you're telling me I need to up them. So you can't make anyone happy.
We're doing a whole show about this, Jose. That's how strongly I feel about that topic. That's our next show. But Marc, I'm gonna throw it back to you because, like I said, you're very well connected. You got some money. You could have hired Chad Nichols. You could have hired Honey Rambod, Chris Aceto, Farah, anybody you wanted, Matt Jansen, anybody you wanted to. Why Jose Raymond?
Well, I don't want to, how do I say this to not sound, this is my opinion and it might not be right. Okay. And you might not agree with it, but this is where my mind is. Number one, I love Jose. Like he stayed at my house. Like he's a friend. Yeah. And I'm more likely to trust a friend over someone I've just met at a trade show and maybe broke bread with a couple times. Like I said, there's very few people I can say are friends that I would take a bullet for. And this is a guy I would literally give my life to preserve his, you know, that's something you need to look at. But honestly, he did it. And this is not saying that you have to be a Mr. Olympia, a 10-time, you know, Arnold, whatever, and whatever's Jose's done. You don't have to do that to be a good coach. I get it. Obviously, Aceto did a great job with Jose, but Jose not only knows it, but he actually did it. So when you get to that level where, shit, man, I have no fat on my feet. I can't stand. I have no fat on my ass. I can't sit. When I lay down, I get sore. Like he's been there. And he knows it. So there's something to be said about actually, you know, there's a lot, you know, I think what is the old things like teachers teach, they don't actually do or whatever it is. And I think that's the thing. He's actually been there, done that. And he had the look that I wanted. So aside from being a friend and everything, you know, a lot of those guys like Honey's phenomenal. Like I love Honey. I think he's a genius, you know? Aceto, obviously someone he doesn't even know I worked with. I worked with him back at Weeder. I looked over his stuff back in the day when magazines used to be in print. Remember that? Yeah, right. And like these guys are heroes to me. These guys are awesome. But when the rubber meets the road and you can't argue with these results, like even people who hate me are like, well, you did bring it. You know, I did not, I had so many, but didn't expect that. I'm like, that makes two of us. I had no idea I could look like that. No idea. Right on.
Jose, are you looking forward to his first prep as an IFBB Pro starting up in a few months?
Yeah, 100%. I think there's some things that we can do because I wasn't as involved in his growth phase as I would have liked to. Where now we have months to really do something special. And with Marc, you know what it's like. If he had even 3 pounds of muscle, it's going to be dramatic looking. You know, so there's a lot of things that I would like to do that I wasn't able to. I mean, he would have listened to me if I gave him some advice in the past, but I wasn't as heavily involved. So now that I get to make some of the calls in starting, you know, in January, February, March, where he can really start making an impact. Yeah, I'm excited about that because I know that if we can bring that same condition with a few more pounds of muscle in the right places, he's going to be dangerous. You know, I'm not going to say he's going to go and beat Lunsford or anything, but Marc can be competitive in pretty much any show. And because of those qualities where his presentation will be great. You know, that's another thing. His color was the best color in the show. These are small little things that make a difference. If I wasn't there, he would just generally be like, oh, I'll use the stage color from the show. Right. No, that it makes a huge difference. We started his color Wednesday night. You know, he had someone there that helped him put on his first couple coats. Then when I got there on Thursday, we started doing more. And there's a whole process to looking professional on stage, and that's making sure the color is perfect. And I'm anal about that.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, everyone that I work with ends up having the best color on stage. And that's because of a process that I went through when I used to compete. Right. And I make sure that they do the exact same thing. So yeah, with all things considered, I'm excited to be more involved in his development into his prep to when we actually start. And then I know for sure he can be the hardest guy on stage. Let's just bring a few more pounds of muscle.
I didn't send you my weight today because I was going to be about 222. So we're looking really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're making some gains. It's been a great time. Like I've again, like my health and everything, my blood pressure sitting even with the extra weight at 110/70, resting heart rates at 45. Like the thing is, I'm a hypochondriac when it comes to health, and Jose probably saw my big tub of pills. So it's not an act. You know, I really don't want to die. You know, you see all these things happening, and there are many ways to do both. And again, like I'm not going to get up to 300 pounds. I'm going to stay within shooting distance of stage, and we're going to have a good time while doing it. And I'm going to keep coaching and doing what I do. I'm not going to be a brain dead bodybuilder. I have businesses to run, and this is something you can do, but you have to kind of will yourself. You have to work with someone like Jose's not that guy. Jose doesn't take risks. He actually cares about who he works with and wants them to be healthy and wants them to have a quality of life, even during prep.
Well, guys, I appreciate you both taking so much time. You're both very busy. Mark, God, you probably missed like 3 meetings doing this, so thank you. Want to encourage everyone to follow Jose on social media. His Instagram is The Boston Mass with 2 E's, The Boston Mass. Website is thebostonmass.com. All kinds of great info there, coaching services, merchandise. Mark, what's the best way to get, I don't want you to get inundated with DMs or anything, but it's at Marc Lobliner, right?
Yeah, at Marc Lobliner, MarcLobliner. I do reply to everything.
Oh gosh.
I reply to everything myself. I have no assistant, and my wife refuses to be called my assistant, so she won't help me. So on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at Marc Lobliner, YouTube's at Tiger Fitness, and you know that's pretty much it. But I'm accessible. If you have any questions about stuff, I'll do my best. Or if you just want to reach out and follow the process, and hopefully we can motivate each other.
Right. Well, congratulations on the win, Mark. Well deserved. You blew the show away, so it wasn't even a question. Great job, Jose, on a first prep with a client. My goodness. And that's it. We want to thank everyone for watching. I'm not sure when this is going to post, so I'm not going to talk about any particular holidays or anything, but I will say happy belated birthday to Jose yesterday. That was his birthday.
That's right. Yeah, thank you.
I had no idea. Happy birthday.
Thank you, brother.
It's my wife's birthday. That's the only reason I know. But yeah, it's a great day to be born.
You get to a certain age and you stop being excited about birthdays.
I could totally get that. Trust me, I'm old and wealthy.
But you get free meals at restaurants. Like IHOP gives you like free pancakes.
Well, I'm getting what's that, AARP? I get those cards in a month.
Oh my goodness, you're in that club?
Yeah.
That's even better than a Pro Card. Pro Card gets you no discounts except Lululemon.
That's not bad. Cool. Well,
20%.
Anyway.
It's huge.
Actually, that's not bad. Lululemon's very pricey. So
it's phenomenal.
Yeah. So thank you guys for taking the time. Thanks everyone for watching. No Way Jose, starring the Boston Mass, Jose Raymond, with special guest today, Marc Lobliner. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.